it creates enough space for the business owner where not only can they see opportunities, but then they can also take advantage of those opportunities. Systems and great people, and obviously a great product. Those are the three things. You get those right, and then your business becomes this scalable money machine.
Welcome to the Kind Boss podcast, brought to you by Outsourcing Angel, an Australian-based social enterprise that specializes in helping business owners free up their time and reduce staffing costs while helping to create employment opportunities for people in developing countries. Visit outsourcingangel.com today. Now, let me welcome your host, Linh Podetti.
Hello, kind listeners. I'm your host, Linh Podetti. Today, we'll be speaking to a kind boss, David Jenyns, founder of SystemHub. David's entrepreneurial journey begins back in his early 20s when he sold Australia's most loved sporting ground, the Melbourne Cricket Ground. Since then, his business experience spans from franchising retail clothing stores to founding one of Australia's most trusted digital agencies, MelbourneSEOservices.com. In 2016, he successfully systemised himself out of the business, hired a CEO, and stepped back from the daily operations. Through this process, he became a systems devotee and founded SystemHub and Systemology. Listen on as he shares his mission of freeing up all business owners worldwide from the daily operations of running their business. Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Kind Boss podcast. And today I have my good friend, Dave Jenyns. How are you?
Good. Hey, Lynn, how are you? Great to be on the episode.
I'm good. And thank God, like the other time you were interviewing me and now I get a chance to interview you. So it's exciting.
The tables have turned.
Yeah. And so, I really wanted to have a chat with you because with what you do, it's just so in line with what we're trying to do at Outsourcing Angel, which is really to free business owners from their own business. Because sometimes, you start out a business trying to get freedom and then it's the last thing you actually even get. And so, I want to talk to you today all about systemizing and freedom. How about that?
Yeah, let's do it. Where do you want to start? It's a big topic, and I think what I like about your energy that you bring to it is to make it exciting. A lot of business owners, they just don't get excited by the idea of systems and processes. Whereas for me, I think what I get most excited about is the result that it gives you. It's not the writing of the detailed processes that I love, but I love the freedom, the fact that it can reduce errors, give the business owner more time, and help scale the business. And that's a big part of what I try and bring attention to.
Awesome. And so what made you decide that this is my passion? Like, I just love this. Was there like a big pain point that made you go, I don't want this to happen to other people?
Biggest one is just recognizing that it's one of the least well addressed areas of business, because I think for the work that has been completed out there around business systemization, there's very little of it that's tailored for the small and medium-sized business. It's usually Six Sigma or Lean, which are all methodologies that have been designed for businesses that are 100 staff plus or in manufacturing, and it just doesn't translate. And I've read the books much like you have, like the E-Myth and Traction, Built to Sell, Scaling Up, and they got me all excited for systems and processes, but then I felt really stuck because it was like, okay, well, now what? Where do I get started? What's the first system I'd create? And how do I get my team to follow it? And all those sorts of things. And because it was such a challenge for me over pretty much a 10-year period in my digital agency, I got trapped being the guy. I was the bottleneck, the centerpiece. We had about 15 staff around me, but everything came through me. And I knew it's a huge challenge, and being involved with groups like EO and different masterminds, it's just something that repeatedly comes up as a problem that so many business owners just struggle to solve, that I just got drawn to it. And I thought, right, this is where I'm going to do my best work.
Yeah. And so talking about the book, right? So I had the privilege of reading the draft, and I must say I was so amazed that, because even though my operations manager, he's a systems guy, and, we built our systems, but we kind of, I guess, we were guessing our way through systems, right? We kind of made up our own systems. But when I had the chance to read your book, I was like, oh my God, Richard, you got to read this, because you've made it so easy for us to kind of implement, or anyone new to implement, because like you said, other books get you excited, then you don't know what to do and you assume it's going to be very difficult, but you've made it so easy. So let's talk about that book, this awesome book, and I want to start with the overall, what are those you take?
Yeah, so it's a 7-step process. It's the system for systemizing business, Systemology. And the whole idea of it is to address some of the big myths that people have around systemization. People think that the business owner needs to create the systems. They think that it's going to be a real time-consuming task, that they're going to have to create hundreds of systems. They think that even if they create systems, maybe their team won't follow them, or they're worried that if they create systems, it's going to remove creativity. And oftentimes even people think one of the biggest roadblocks is they think, oh, I've got to systemize like McDonald's. Because whenever anybody talks about a systemized business, the first one that comes to mind is McDonald's. And there are all of these myths. And for me, I started to test these assumptions and then realized a lot of them were just getting in the way of me systemizing the business, and it was just baggage that I was holding. So the book goes through these 7 steps, which addresses each one. And the first one is define, so getting very clear on a handful of systems that are going to move the needle. Then assign, that's step number 2. You think about who on the team has the knowledge, preferably that isn't the business owner. Step number 3 is extract. How do we get it out of their brain and make it easy for the team member to share what it is that they do and get it documented? Then we've got organize. How do you then put it in a place where the whole team can use it? And how do you integrate that with some form of project management so there's accountability of who is doing what by when? Then we move to, after organize, we've got integrate, which is then about getting the team to follow the process. How do we actually get buy-in and meet resistance? Then the next one, step number 6, is scale, which is all about the systems that you'll need to grow the business to that next level. Things like recruiting and onboarding, which I know you're really strong in. And then there's other departments like the finance side of things, making sure that you've got systems for issuing invoices and paying wages and those sorts of things. And then the final stage is really the optimization phase, because a lot of people, they start off trying to make the systems really perfect out of the gate and just right, and then that also stops them. So I say, hang on, just slow down. How about we just capture what it is that you're doing right now? Let's get everybody up to that standard. You'll get some tremendous wins just by doing that. Then once you've got a baseline, then circle back around and do the optimization. So this 7-step process takes someone from having 0 businesses to having the core framework and business model in place and documented, and the team following the process, with a goal to remove the business owner and any team member. Really, you don't want key person dependency in a business. That's a risky place to be. And I mean, that's why what you do is so magical, because I feel like when you combine good systems with good people, that's when a business really takes off.
Yeah, I love it. Now, one part that hooked me straight away at the beginning of the book was the critical client flow. Now, I really love that framework, and I want you to really go into it, because I think, as you're describing those steps, if anyone's listening, it kind of sounds vague. It kind of sounds like, yeah, it's like everyone else is saying, but it's how you went into detail about how to actually get started with the system that really got me, wow, this is amazing. Because I think a lot of times we know we need to do systems, we don't know where to start. So let's talk about that critical client flow.
Yeah, perfect. Definitely, it's the first step that kickstarts everything, and every chapter in the book has very specific action items that focus in on the minimum steps to get you the biggest result. So the critical client flow has to do with identifying, it's the 80-20. What are the 20% of the systems in your business that give you the 80% of the result? And if you get this right, it makes it very easy for you to go, well, I know where I should start, because this is the way the business makes money. So, I mean, anybody can do it. They don't even need to read the book to know how to do it. If you just get yourself a bit of paper, and it's like an A4 bit of paper, in the top left-hand corner, you would start off by identifying your dream customer. So the dream customer is the person who pays your advertised prices, who's a joy to work with, who'll come back and buy more products and services off you, and who'll refer business to you. So if you think about who that person is, and then the next line underneath that, think about what is the first product or service that you would sell to that dream customer that would help them learn about you, have a good result, you get a win for them, and would also introduce them to the rest of your products and services. So on this A4 bit of paper, top left-hand corner, who's your dream client and who is that product or service, or what is that product or service? And then you just work down the page. It's a linear journey that the customer and the business goes through to deliver that core product or service. So you start off thinking, you always think, what is it that I'm doing, not what would I like to do? And you think, right, where do I get attention? How do I make my clients or this target audience aware of what it is that I do? Are you running Facebook ads? Maybe you're doing AdWords, maybe you're doing SEO, maybe you're appearing on podcasts or running newspaper and magazine ads, whatever it is. Just list those out in boxes at the top of the page, and then you work your way down the page. The next box underneath that would be, how do you get an inquiry into the business? Is it an email? Is it a phone call? Is someone filling out a web form? Then you move down the page. Next box underneath that. How do you then respond to that inquiry? Like, what's your sales process? Do you have a way to qualify them first? Do you then get them onto a Zoom call and have your sales call? And then what happens after that? Do you create a proposal that you send out to them, and how do you follow up with them? So as you're kind of moving down the page, each one of these boxes that has not more than a word or two in each of the boxes to describe that step. And then we get down to the next step, which is money, which is, how do you then take money? When they're ready to go ahead, do you take 50% up front or 50% on completion? Do you take all the money up front, or how do you process payment? Then next rung down is the next little box would be, how do you onboard your clients? Do you get them to fill out a questionnaire? How do you get them into your project management platform or whatever it may be? Next one under that, how do you deliver the core product or service? And then the one underneath is, how do you hand the work over and complete the project? So that journey from getting their attention all the way through to delivery for one target audience, for one primary product, map it out, not more than 2 or 3 words for each stage. And what that does is get your brain very clear on what are the core critical systems. Now, some systems are going to be a lot more complex than others. Obviously, for something like the doing of the work, that one might have lots of more detailed processes under it. But you can have, from a high level, seeing how your business works. It can also give you indications where areas of weakness might be. You might look at that critical client flow, and then it'll become immediately clear why you don't have enough leads. Well, you don't have enough lead generation systems, or maybe you're having a problem selling leads when they come in. Well, maybe you don't have a sales system, or maybe you're having these customers who always outreach to you and have questions and following you up. It's 2 days since they've purchased and they want to know where their product is. That might be that you didn't have a good process for onboarding the client to set their expectations. So the critical client flow probably takes about 10 to 15 minutes for any business, and it'll give you such clarity on where to start. Because if you can systemize your critical client flow and you can deliver that core product or service without key person dependency, you've created a scalable money machine, something that isn't dependent on a person. So that's really where you want to get to.
Yeah, I really love it because it's so comprehensive, and it made me realize that. So what happened was, after I did it, it asked about, how do you take payments from customers? We know we take payments, but we just haven't actually wrote the system, because how I knew that was, there you go. If you're watching the video format, you can see the critical client flow there. And so I was able to quickly check in our system of processes and realize that we were just doing a lot of process around marketing and client onboarding and sales. And the biggest bit that we didn't do was the whole payment collection. And there's one person doing that right now. And it was like red alert. I said to my operations manager, oh my God, we haven't wrote this process down. If Wendy gets hit by a bus tomorrow, we're screwed. We're going to be running around trying to figure it out. And so he's like, oh yeah. And so that's when we got really impressed with that client flow, because you covered it all well. Because I think when you think of processes, you think of doing a few, you just randomly pick what you think you need to do. You do a few of them and you think, oh, I'm all set. But there are just gaps in there.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing I found. A lot of business owners, when they get started on systemization, they get overwhelmed and they think they need to have hundreds of systems, and they even start focusing on things that don't necessarily impact the bottom line. They might be, here's a system for how to take out the trash. I mean, you don't need a system for that. You're just doing it to distract yourself, and then you feel like you've created some busy work. Whereas if you focus in on the critical client flow, it's just a fantastic clarity tool that I think gets you the quickest win. Like, and I think each stage in the process, like systemology, after you've identified your critical client flow, then the next step is to think, well, who in the team knows how? Like you mentioned Wendy, next to each one of the tasks in the critical client flow, a person's name can be next to it who is the best person or the person who does that task. And the goal is to extract it out of their head what they're doing. And wherever you can, remove the business owner. Because I think when you start to systemize, the best time to systemize is once you've got a little bit of traction and you're having a little bit of success. You've figured out your product to market fit, you're selling to clients, you're getting good feedback, you've got some team members around you, but then you're finding that you're the bottleneck. And that's the right time. And you actually need to empower your team. And I see this as a common problem, particularly when people go for offshore talent. And, you know, they look to someone like yourself to help them find a virtual assistant. And they don't appreciate how talented these people can be and other team members can be with the right guidance, with the right direction, with a little bit of onboarding, with the right systems. Like for me, it's been a huge competitive advantage building our team based in the Philippines. And I know you're a big believer of that as well, particularly for Australian-based companies and really just companies in any sort of first world where they charge a real premium because of the cost of living. You can pay someone incredibly well in some of these other emerging economies and you get a huge competitive advantage.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the pitch there. If you're listening
Preaching to the
this,
converted.
yeah, hire a VA from me. So the other thing is, you know, as my business grew, I wasn't the bottleneck anymore. But after doing your critical client flow, what stood out was that the fact that I'm now relying on this one staff who has all the information. And it reminds me of a lot of companies where you have kind of crappy staff, but you can't let them go because they know how to do the work and they know everything. And then you don't take the time out to go and to create those systems, because then you're reliant on them. And so that's a big problem for even more established companies.
And it happens oftentimes, the business owner, when they first get started, they don't know what it is that they don't know. They just get into business. They hire that first person or two. Now that person then might stick with them for a good number of years. And now you're so far down the rabbit hole, you didn't put any thought into the recruitment up front. So they may or may not have been the right person. Now they've created this little black box around them where you don't know exactly what it is that they're doing. You have this fear of, what happens if they end up going? So you kind of feel like you're walking on eggshells, and they could be like it could be dead weight. They might not be performing. And that's not even to mention if something did happen to them. So definitely there has to be a time when you grow into this point where you realize systems are important. And you also need to help those team members realize the benefit of the systemization for them as well. Having a systemized business means that team members can actually move up in your organization because they can delegate work off. It means they can take holidays. I remember doing some work with a solar company, and we went through the process of the critical client flow and figuring out who in the team knew how to do things. And there was one team member who had spoken to me in confidence as we were identifying their systems from the critical client flow. And he said, I haven't had a proper holiday in the last 3 years.
Wow.
It was just like the business owners, a lot of business owners, but this was an actual team member who said, the business owner doesn't know how to do this part of the job. And they require me, even when I'm on holidays, to jump in at the evenings and do this little bit. So he was just crying out for the systems because he said, I want to be able to delegate this so I know it's taken care of. So it's not just the business owner that this will benefit. It'll actually benefit the entire team.
Want to make a difference in others' lives? Join us in providing food, medical supplies, and daily living necessities to tribal communities living in extreme poverty in the Philippines. For as little as $50, you can feed a whole village and have peace of mind that 100% of your donations goes directly to those in need. Be a part of our OA Love projects and visit outsourcingangel.com.
And, you know, the other part that was interesting for us was the buddying system, because I think we always think that it's a solo kind of work, a task, you're good at this, so go and start creating systems. And yeah, share with us your concept around having that partner that is going to be part of creating the system with you.
So in stage number 3 of the systemology process, which is the extract phase, I had a huge insight around how to make it easy, because I realized as much as I love systems, I'm not a systems person. I don't get excited by writing these detailed documents. It's not something that I love doing. And not only that, being a business owner, I'm incredibly busy. Then I started down this journey of systems, and then I realized I'm not the only one who's busy. My best staff are also busy, and I can't just say to them, hey, I want you to document your processes, when I haven't been able to do it and I haven't been able to create space. So I came up with this idea that systemization, it's a 2-person job. You've got the person who has the knowledge, and then you have a documenter who goes alongside them. So you just record the knowledgeable worker doing the task. So I remember a great example of that. I had a company we were working with, Portavac, and they clean roofing gutters. And they had some tradespeople who went out in the field. What Portavac did is I helped them identify a systems champion in their business. His name was Kane. He was a 20-year-old, enthusiastic, curious, give anything a go kind of guy. And we put a GoPro that he wore out into the field, and he went out with one of the tradespeople when he went out to service a client, and basically recorded the whole thing, everything from setting up the equipment to how he engaged with the client to the way that he issued the invoice and sent the reports through to head office, and then brought those videos back and then cut them up into pieces, watched them, and pulled out the key steps. Now, there would be no chance that we would have got the tradesperson to ever write a system or a process. By buddying them up with someone who helped with the documentation, it made it very easy. And then Kane went back to the knowledgeable worker and said, hey, here's the system that I've created based on watching what you were doing. And that knowledgeable worker, that tradesperson, was so happy to give feedback, because everybody loves to edit something and give feedback. No one likes to create something from scratch. So it was a much easier way to engage and enroll someone, by making it easy for those people who may or may not like documenting systems.
Yeah, that was such a big light bulb there for me, because, and the other thing is, if the person who's documenting it, if they're listening to you and they also get confused and go, that doesn't make sense, then they're already validating the process that you're teaching as well. So I think it's a kind of like a win-win. You kind of, the people play at their strength doing documenting, or you're doing the information sharing, but it's also then confirming if the process is correct, because this person is actually learning something new or documenting it, right?
Yeah, another good example, it's perfect actually based on the work that you do. There's a guy, Den Lenny, who teaches...
Yes, he was a client of ours, and I think he's interested in coming back to us soon.
Oh, okay. Well, you know the story then, actually, because VA that he got through you, he got his VA, one of the first things that they did, he said, go through the systemology course. Mm-hmm. And then he said, right, I want you to apply this to my business. So the VA that he hired through you, it became their job to document the systems and the processes. And he pretty much just systemized his entire business, but he had the VA do it. They did all the heavy lifting. They did the documentation, and they just followed the systemology approach. So letting go as a business owner, empowering team members, even virtual team members, it's a process. Finally, you'll get this task that you know you've wanted to do for years done. Like all business owners, whenever I have the discussion with them, they're all like, yeah, systems, they're important. They're just never urgent. I never get to them, and they know they should do them, but they never do. So a great way to make it happen is to get a VA, get them a copy of the Systemology book, and say, this is your responsibility now. I need you to champion this forward.
Yeah. And I was told without systems and process, your business is worth nothing, right? Because people can't buy it from you because you've got all the information.
In the book, actually, there's a case study, I think one of the last chapters, Diggy Doggy Daycare, which is a company, Jeanette, she runs this doggy daycare center where people take their dogs at the start of the day and leave them there, and they've got webcams set up so you can watch your dog getting groomed and fed and walked and all that sort of good stuff. And she built a fantastic business, and she'd been doing it for about 10 years though, and she kind of was getting a bit tired of it and thought, right, maybe this is time for me to exit. From her past experience, she knew that there were two things that acquirers look at. One is systems, because they want to make sure that the business can keep running when the key staff leave or the business owner leaves. And the second was the financial performance. So she dialed in the financial performance, got everything systemized, it was about a 2-year process from when she said, I'm going to do this. And then she exited. She got an unbelievable multiple, exited incredibly well. The person who bought it, which was wasn't a person, it was a national company here in Australia, said, right, we are buying this with a view to now franchise this out across Australia because you've systemized it to the point where it runs like a franchise. And that's why they paid so much for that business, was because it was running like a very finely oiled machine. That, again, I've had some personal experience as well that made me realize a huge part of the value of business when it comes to selling it, the systems and processes.
Yeah, amazing. So where do people find this book? Yeah, yes. Where is it at?
Yeah, so head over to systemology.com/book. Depending on when you're listening to this, it'll be available on Amazon. So you get the hardcover, or if you're listening to this, you like audios. I did read the audio, so it's on Audible, and I read it. I always love listening to books where the author has read it. And there's also Kindle as well, and there's a bunch of other links I have on that systemology.com/book. There's also a link through to my podcast where I interviewed you. My podcast is a little bit different. All I do is I find people, I get them to share a system or a process. You shared your recruitment process, and then I have my team document it. So that's through
you live and preach systemization. Everything is documented. I love it.
Have to be the best example of it.
And I must say, I was really impressed with the foreword from Michael Gerber, yes, and you're good friends with him. So come on, throw him out. Let people know how much of an influence you guys have on each other.
When I systemized my digital agency, I just got a message completely out of the blue from his wife who said, call me. Now, I didn't know Michael Gerber at all. I just got this email and I thought, oh, this is interesting. I knew the surname, Gerber. So I just hopped on the phone.
So this is because you haven't read the book E-Myth yet. This is like the number one book that everyone has read.
Yeah, well, if you don't know Michael Gerber, he wrote a book called...
So is this after he's already written it, right? Like he's written it, but you just haven't heard of him.
I knew who he was. I didn't know his wife's name.
Okay.
So his wife was Luz Delia Gerber, and the email come through, and I thought, oh, I know the surname Gerber. I just didn't know that it was his wife.
Yep.
So I called her, and she said, oh, look, Michael's just turned 80. He's thinking about, his legacy, kind of what does he do with his body of work when he passes on or can't continue to spread the message. So he said this last book, this was the book, his last book, Beyond the E-Myth.
Yeah.
He said, oh, look, I don't want to go through traditional publisher, which I've done. He went through HarperCollins for all of the other books. I want to self-publish this one, and I want to do a book launch for it. Now, I don't know how it happened, but Luz Delia happened to see my first book, which was Authority Content. She saw me launch that book and said, oh, I loved what you did there. Can you just do that for Michael? And I was like a bit starstruck. I was like, okay. So I ended up, she said, I need you to work on this full time for 3 months, and you won't do anything other than just eat and breathe and drink E-Myth for this period. And we're going to make this an Amazon bestseller. Pretty much, I was in the fortunate position where I'd systemized the digital agency. I had a CEO who's running it. So I said, I'll do it. Not only that, I'll volunteer for the position, because I said it'll just be a great opportunity to work and learn under Michael. So I worked on it solidly for 3 months, ended up flying to the States. And when the book launched, it became an Amazon bestseller in 24 hours. So they were really happy with the result. And I had attended, he runs an event called the Dreaming Room, or I'm not sure if he's still running it now. It was one of the last events that he ran. And off the back of that event, he was running this mastermind where he pretty much invited the who's who of business to attend. Wow. It was in his presidential suite at the end of the event. And they were planning to get Tony Robbins to facilitate the mastermind, where they were basically talking about, what are we going to do with Michael's work? And that they couldn't get Tony. It was the 11th hour. They didn't have a facilitator. So I stuck up my hand and I said, oh, well, if you don't have a facilitator, I'll be the guy. So here I was, not knowing Michael 4 months earlier. Like, I'd never spoken to him. And here I am now facilitating front of the room for this group thinking about the future legacy of Michael's work. And it was at that point that I just realized how important systems were and are, because by systemizing my business, it gave me the opportunity to follow this opportunity. Most people, if I said, look, Oprah for your industry is knocking on your door and they say, I want to work on a dream job with you, most people are going to go, oh, look, I'm a little bit too busy. How can I step away from, I can't even step away from my business for 2 days, let alone 3 months. And systems and processes, when you get your business humming, it creates enough space for the business owner where not only can they see opportunities, but then they can also take advantage of those opportunities. And that's, I suppose, really where I became a super convert, realized this is a big part of my calling to help business owners now get their businesses to the point where it runs without them. And I think systems and great people, and obviously a great product, those are the three things. You get those right, and then your business becomes this scalable money machine.
Yeah, you raised so many good points in there. Well, first of all, yeah, you and Michael just fit right in, right? You're both the systems guy, and you're the best fit to, continue with his legacy. And the other part, you're right, during the coronavirus, I was able to kind of, change my schedule, working less days and be there for my kids. And I was able to do that. And so it's more like having systems is great for when something happens or opportunity, yes, like you said. So awesome stuff there.
Definitely. That's something that's popped up more and more conversations that I have. Now is the best time to systemize, because there's so much change going on in the world. Sometimes, yes, you can get resistance from your staff when you introduce a new way of doing things and say, right, we're going to follow systems and processes. Some people will resist on that, but I'm finding now, because of everything that's going on with coronavirus, the resistance is the least that it has ever been, because people are now getting used to change. They realize, hang on, my kids are working from home. I'm working from home. The way that I go out and order, do things, I'm now working virtually more. There's so much change that by you just going, oh, here's another little change that we needed to add into the mix, they're just going, okay, cool. Yeah, that's, of course we have to change. Life is changing. So it's now is, if you're thinking about it and you've never quite been able to make it work, now's the time to systemize your business.
Yeah. And here's the coolest secret. I'm able to now pursue my acting career. So now I'm practicing acting and doing acting as a new professional, new hobby, because of being able to systemize my business and freeing myself up. So then I could actually go, I can do this now. It's a fun thing. So, I wanted to inspire the audience. The next section is called the high five. This is where I'm going to ask you this or that question. So we get to know David a little bit more, Dave a little bit more, and just elaborate on your answers so that we get to know you. Okay, number one. Okay, this is a funny one. Systems or team?
Oh, that's like saying, which of your children do you love more? Yes.
I'm only going to throw out hard questions for you.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, look, if I had to pick, it would be systems. And here's why. Because people will come and go. And the only thing that will stick with you through thick and thin and from one business to the next are your systems. The systems are the asset. And your systems, you will have a recruiting system. So if you need to find great staff, well, now you've got a system for the way that you find and hire them. So if I had to pick, but again, it would be like choosing, between my two children.
Impressive. I really like that answer. Okay, number two, thank you or please?
Thank you, I would say. And I think that's just because starts from a gratitude perspective. And I feel like, the way to create anything is through gratitude and being grateful for what you have, because then the universe goes, okay, well, if you can handle what you've got, I'm happy to give you some more. Whereas I feel like please feels a little bit more self-serving and a little bit needy.
Yeah, I like it. All right, number three, Mondays or Fridays?
Oh. I used to not be able to tell the difference between any day of the week. Now that I have kids, I would have to say Friday. I didn't ever understand the thank God it's Friday Club. I love what I do, but also on the weekends, I spend more time with the kids, and that I can't get enough of. So let's say Friday. Mondays are good too, though, because Monday's also time to get into it, get started for the week. So again,
yeah, I know how you feel. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm throwing a lot of tricky questions there, but through your elaboration of your answers, we really got to know you. Number 4, BMW or Mercedes?
Mercedes. I have a friend who used to work at Mercedes, so I've had early indoctrination that Mercedes-Benz are a far superior vehicle, apparently.
Yeah, I think I've had both, and I find Mercedes is actually more quality, more like they don't have as much problems. But I'm driving a BMW right now, so it's more about changing the look. Sometimes it's choosing the style.
Yes.
But yeah.
What I quite like about, and both of them do it quite well, I like cars also that don't always have to kind of show with a badge that they are, the top of the line. Sometimes they're medium line and their top line, there's very little difference, but and someone who knows. Like that's, I like that type of thing.
So cool. All right, final question. Calm or excitement?
Yes, interesting. I have to say excited. It depends on the person I'm chatting with as well. But I think I'm more excited. There are times I'm quietly confident and calm, but I think excitement builds on itself and breeds more excitement. So, and I've got to bring excitement to systems. I think I've got to be one of the only, apart from you, occasionally I find people that are lovers of systems, and then we get excited by systems. And I know we're out there. There's business owners listening to this right now that are also getting excited by the idea of systems. Systems are exciting.
Love it. Well, thanks for those answers. They were awesome. Okay, well, I've got 2 more questions before I let you go because it's gone past the 30-minute block. But this is a Kind Boss podcast, and I invite you because you're kind. What does a kind boss mean to you?
Kind boss is someone who can put themselves in the shoes of their staff. I think that's the biggest thing. Like I would not ask my team to do things that I wouldn't be comfortable doing. And similarly, I used to have a rule: if I couldn't show my mum the thing, then we wouldn't end up doing it. Having the digital agency way back when, sometimes you get clients that would come to us that would be in industries that I wouldn't feel comfortable to show mum. So we would turn that client away. So it's always about, I think putting yourself in the other person's shoes and looking from it from that perspective.
Beautiful. Love it. All right. Final question. What do you want the world to remember Dave for?
For freeing all business owners worldwide from the day-to-day operations of running their business.
Wow. That was, did you script that?
I know it. That's the dream of our company.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to do. I struggled with that for so long. It's a very challenging thing for a lot of business owners because oftentimes they're not wired to this, but they need systems more than anyone else. So I believe we solve this problem better than anyone, and that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, no, you're definitely doing a great job. And, if anyone's listening to this, if you really want to free yourself up from your business, please check out Dave. I think you're on LinkedIn, on social media as well, right? And please check out your book. And I'm seriously in love with this book. I'm not even kidding. It's not that because you're my guest and I'm talking to you, but I've already told everyone that, as I was reading it, I got so many light bulb moments. So please check out the book as well. What
I love about that is you are a systems person. And I know I've hit the nail on the head when I've given this book to a few systems people. Even Michael Gerber called the book extraordinary because I've managed to do something that is a very unique approach in this particular space. So all social media, links to the podcast, the book, everything, it's all through systemology.com/book.
Well, thank you so much, David, for coming, and had a blast with you.
Perfect. Thank you. See you, Lynn.
Bye.
Thank you for joining our podcast today. We hope this interview has inspired and humbled you to be a kind boss. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know what you think about our show. If you have any questions, please visit outsourcingangel.com. Until then, stay kind and spread love.